Aloha. Kako, buen dia, servus, salut, salamu alaikum, namaste, and how ya day, ya nasties. Today we are doing a recipe that dates all the way back to ancient Greece and the Etruscans, and actually was the forefathers of today's pizza. Well, what some people say. I don't know all the historians. Oggi stiamo preparando la focaccia. We are making focaccia. Let's get up close and personal with me, shall we? It's probably clear to you by now that my brain does not function just straight through like everyone else's. I don't go from A to B to C to D. I go from A to Z, Z to X, X to J, J to L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and sometimes C. I get there eventually, it's just a little more adventurous. This time of year is garden season for me. So I look out and there goes a bunch of birds fly by. See, I love nature. So I'm getting distracted. Case in point, the other day I was out in my gardens planting garlic. Maybe too early, maybe too late, I don't know. This is the time that I'm planting my garlic. I happened to look over at my Bride of Chucky rosemary bush. Now, when I say Bride of Chucky, she was like, hey, what you want? And I was all like, girl, why are you looking crazy? She's like, well, you ain't cut me over quarantine. So then I hacked her up. And that sounds really morbid. So I cut up some of my rosemary and I thought to myself, well, what am I gonna do with all this rosemary? Marcus, my husband, he does not care for rosemary as much as I like it. I can only give my one neighbor so much rosemary before she probably writes me out of her life, because I typically give her huge mounds of rosemary. Then I thought, there is a recipe that I know he likes and I know that I love. I mean, I do love to eat. I've made this dish for people from Milano, people from Roma, people from Biflo. Actually, no, I haven't. So we're just up close, no personal. I do have a fun story. Yes, I remember I do have a fun story. You just jump around like your granny, go telele with Jesus. So once a year, a group of us goes on a big trip, a big international trip. A couple years back, we did Tuscany. When I was vacationing in Tuscany, oh, that sounds so freaking pretentious. Now, we stayed in this villa, it was really nice, overlooking the cliffs of Montepulciano, and on the villa ground, there was tons of rosemary bushes. Now, they weren't Chucky's bride like my rosemary bush. They were beautiful. Not that mine's not beautiful. She's just a little crazy. It's par for the course for this house. One day, decided to go out and gather all of these bits and pieces of plants around the villa. We had gone to the market and I had a bunch of other stuff, some yeast and blah, blah, blah. So I said, you know what? Let me make a focaccia, because how awesome is it to make a bread with olive oil from the olives that are on the villa with rosemary that's growing on the villa's property. It was a fantastic focaccia. So I actually did have a fun focaccia story. That's pretty cool. Didn't think I had a story, but I always does have a story. Facciamo la focaccia. Before we start, first things first, we're gonna preheat the oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Cominciamo. 1 1/4 cup of sourdough starter. Now this is a well-fed starter. 3 cups of all-purpose flour. 1 1/4 cup of warm water. 1 tablespoon of honey. Hey honey, how you doing? We've got 2 teaspoons of yeast. 1 teaspoon of sea salt that's finely ground. 1/2 cup of olive oil. 2 speepoons. 2 speepoons, please. Can't even say the word. 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. It's roughly about 4 garlic cloves. And you're gonna need 2 sprigs of rosemary. One of those rosemary sprigs, you just want to rough chop it so you can still see that it is actually rosemary. And the other one, you want it to be very peekaboo fine. I want you to chop this one down like you were trying to hide it from everyone. We have 1 tablespoon of turbinado sugar and 1/2 tablespoon of flaked sea salt. Now, if you do not have flaked sea salt, you can use something like kosher salt. However, I would cut back on the amount. Now, this recipe is actually very easy. However, it does take 3 different parts that we're going to combine. We're gonna start off by making the infused oil. Take the olive oil with the garlic and the rough chopped rosemary. We're gonna place that on a low flame just until we are able to impart all that garlicky and rosemary-y flavor into that oil. Start the poolish, we're going to take our sourdough starter, we're gonna add the warm water to it, give it a little mix, then we're going to pour that into a mixing bowl. To this, we are going to add our honey and just 1 cup of flour. Give that a good mix. Now we're gonna let this mixture sit for 30 minutes or more. You can let this sit overnight if you want. Now that this has been sitting to ferment, we're gonna go ahead and actually make the dough itself. We're just going to add in our yeast. We're gonna gradually add in flour. Now I like to dump it in on the top, and then I will slowly start mixing with my hands. You better be sure to wash your nasty hands after. Now you want to mix this until you get a shaggy dough. Now what that means is basically you just want it roughly combined. You can still see some dry flour, you can see some bits of the actual wetness. I won't use the M word. I'm going to take 1/4 cup of the rosemary oil and pour it in there. We're just going to keep mixing till we get a nice dough from this. I'm gonna turn this out onto the table and I'm going to knead it. Once you have a nice soft dough that's slightly sticky, we're going to take the pan that we are going to cook it in. We're going to pour a little bit of that oil in there, and we're just going to brush up the sides. You just want to be sure that every area is covered. Now we're going to take this and just put it in. I like to take and just brush the top with a little bit of the olive oil. And then we will let this sit in a proofer for about an hour or until it doubles in size. All you need to do to proof your dough is let it sit in a nice warm spot covered until it doubles. That proofing allows all that gluten to relax that we've worked up really hard. That resting time allows the yeast to do its job. Basically what it will do is eat all the sugars and it produces carbon dioxide. What makes your bread rise is yeast farts. Our dough has proofed for 1 hour, and as you can see as it expanded. Tell me they're farting down there, busting stink farts left and right, filling up the bread with all of the nasty bumbleclot poofs. The body say poof now. Now we just want to take with our fingers and press it down. I'm going to take the remaining bit of oil and pour that over. And with your fingers, just kind of push that little oil. It's okay if there's little pockets of oil that pull up. Now it's all proved and poked down. We're going to take half of this. Now you don't have to be exact, but you just want to sprinkle some of the turbinado sugar on the top, as well as half of your flaked salt. The remainder we will use at the end. We're going to put this in an oven that is heated for 450. You want that to be screeching hot. We're gonna put it in for 20 minutes. What you can't do while you're standing there and the thing baking there, you hold your tail over there and wash the damn dirty dishes. So as soon as we pull the focaccia out of the oven, we want to sprinkle the remaining bits of sugar on there, remaining bits of salt, and our finely diced rosemary. So the other day I received a mysterious package, and it wasn't something that I ordered, so I was a little curious. And when I opened it, I had a very nice surprise from someone who I have cooked for several times. So I opened it and I had a beautiful board with my favorite part. Let's see if I can get it. Nice little inscription there. So today we are going to use this beautiful board as our display. And there we have a beautiful piece of Focaccia al Rosmarino. Nice focaccia with rosemary. Hope you enjoyed today. Remember, stay kind, stay compassionate. Most of all, wash your hands, you nasty. Can't stop eating it. Like I could legit eat a whole thing of it. This for me is like a hug. This is love. Questo è amore. That's just how my brain works. Nasty. Fermentation equals fartation.